What's going on YouTube? Aaron back with a new vinyl update for you guys today. On today's video, I'm going to open up my collection for another installment of What I Collect. We're going to go through my vinyl collection of the music of Nick Thorburn, aka Nick Diamonds, of the bands Unicorns and Islands, among other side projects. We have a lot of vinyl to get through, so let's get this started. Okay, back in 2003, Nick Diamonds, Alden Penner, and Jamie Thompson formed the band The Unicorns in Canada, and they released an album called Who Will Cut Our Hair When We Are Gone. It's pretty hard to find nowadays, and I have the original pressing on black vinyl. There is a pink vinyl version, and there is a recent reissue on black and pink. But this is the original 2003 version that came on Alien 8 Recordings, based out of Montreal, Canada. Sleeve, some lyrics and sweet artwork. Not ready. Inside, ready. Okay, and in 2004, a year after the album came out, and a heavy, extensive touring schedule, the band had lots of conflicts. They hated being on the road together. Nick was quoted as saying that they hated being around each other about 70% of the time, is what I read in an interview. So being on the road constantly with people that you weren't getting along with, it just did not end well. But before they broke up, they released an EP, a 3-song EP on a 7-inch vinyl. It's on purple wax, and it is called The Unicorns 2014. So that was pretty much the breakup of the Unicorns. It was a very short-lived project. They had one album, one EP, an extensive tour that led to some bad blood and ended the band. However, they did get back together for a short string of shows in 2014, where they decided to share custody of the actor Michael Cera, which was kind of funny. So yeah, there's hopes that maybe down the line, now they're older, more mature, more wiser, I'm not sure what it is, but there's always hopes down the line that they could get back together and do some more stuff later on. Okay, now after the breakup of the Unicorns, Jamie, the drummer, and Nick Diamonds decided to start another band, this time called Islands. And they released in 2005, 2006, their debut album, Return to the Sea, on a 2XLP white vinyl. This is actually probably my second or third favorite album by them. It is a lot different than their later stuff. It's a lot more whimsical, way more similar to that music of the Unicorns. My favorite songs on this album are Swans, Humans, Rough Gem, and Where There's a Will, There's a Will. Next up we have Arms Way, their second album that came out in 2008. And it's interesting to note that Jamie actually left the band while on tour for Return to the Sea. But it's slowly moving away from the sound of Return to the Sea. It's a little less whimsical. It's replaced with guitars, synthesizers, and dark lyrics. In 2008, Jim Guthrie, who was on the tour and on the album Return to the Sea, and Nick decided to get together for a solo project based off of the lyrics to a Neil Young song called Human Highway. Moody Motorcycle is the name of the album. It's a throwback to like Everly Brothers style, 60s, and maybe a little bit of doo-wop sound to it. But yeah, this is, it's supposed to be on a translucent brown, but it's more of a deep dark purple. That's Moody Motorcycle here, the first side project for Nick away from Islands during that time period, 2008. My favorite song on this album here is Duties of a Lighthouse Keeper. There's some other really good ones too. All Day, What World, Sleep Talking's really good, Ode to Abner. There's really not a bad song on this. It plays through really quick, and it's just really good, relaxing music. Alright, the next thing I want to show you guys is a side project for Alden Penner, who is the original guy with Nick in the Unicorns that broke up. It's not really Nick related, so I'm just going to fly through this one real quick. Band called Clues. They lasted one album back in 2009. It's actually a pretty decent album. He doesn't have as strong as vocals as Nick does, but the album artwork's pretty neat. And my favorite song on this one is Approach the Throne. Right, in 2009, third studio album for Islands is titled Vapors. The band kinda went their separate ways, and he brought on a whole new group of guys, Jordy and Evan, Gordon, and he brought back Jamie Thompson for the drums. This is again the downward slide away from the more experimental side of things, and is more a traditional indie rock kind of sound, but it's still heavy with the drum machines and synthesizers, and really dark personal lyrics. And yeah, I'd say that this is a really good album. It's also interesting to note that while on tour for this album, Jamie Thompson yet again left the band. Not sure why. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the 2011 side project, Mr. Heavenly, featuring Man Man's Hannes Hannes and Modest Mouse drummer Joe Plummer. It's another throwback 50s doo-wop kind of sound. Plain inner sleeve here. 50s greaser boyfriend, and there they are making out in the back of his car. It's a really cool album. It's a very cool throwback album. I would definitely check this one out. Pineapple Girl's a pretty sweet ass song. Next up we have the first solo album for Nick Diamonds, and this one came from 2011, and it is entitled I Am an Addict. This is actually the first album that I bought. It's very computer music heavy. There's some really good songs on this. I also thought it was pretty neat that inside was a little cutout thing that he threw in there as a bonus, so I thought that was kind of neat. Keeping with the awesome artwork, I mean, look at that. It's a pretty sweet back cover. This would be a really good place to start if you're interested in hearing some of his solo stuff, because the first 4 songs on this album are really good. Alright, the next studio album we're going to talk about next is Asleep and a Forgetting. This is a really sad album. It came out on Valentine's Day 2012, and it began its writing process on Valentine's Day in 2011. The history of this album is that Nick was in a relationship that failed, and he moved from his home in New York City to California. And the place that he moved into evidently had a piano, and this album was written over the course of that year at that piano. It's a really sad, depressing album, and there's some of the best songs come out of the worst parts and times of your life, and I'd say that this is probably lyrically and emotionally, and like how it connects to me at least, probably their strongest lyrical album. And the next one that we are going to talk about is the 2013 release of Islands called Ski Mask. This was my first Islands record that I ever got, and it is still my favorite. It's probably in my top 10 favorite albums of all time now. There's not a bad song on this thing. It's really awesome. This is the first pressing here on black vinyl. I think there is only black vinyl. It came with a limited edition 7-inch of the songs Aloe Hills Are Blooming and No Search Party. What I like about the 7-inch here, it's hand numbered 557 of 750, and Keep Sweet, which is Nick's kind of catchphrase that he writes on things when he signs. Yeah, Ski Mask, it is such an accessible album for anybody. This is a great place to start if you're looking to get into this band. It has the best of both worlds. It has a little bit of the kooky, weird, older kind of sound that they used to have, mixed with just straightforward indie pop rock. I'd have to say the best songs on this, if I had to limit it down to just 3, which I did for the playlist, it's Waveforms, Becoming the Gunship, and Winged Beat Drums. Cannot beat some of the lyrical wordplay and winged beat drums. It is a killer track. I'm gonna read you just my favorite line from that song. You said life's not a gas, it's a gas chamber. I know you'll follow your nose to where the vapors blow. You feel energetic when you foam at the mouth, the thing that wears you out, an anesthetic. It's just so creative and out there. It is awesome. Next album up is the music from the podcast Serial. Nick was commissioned to write the theme song and a bunch of the mood music played during the podcast. I believe it was probably the #1 podcast in the country for at least a year, if not currently still. There's a handful of tracks in here. They're all anywhere between 10 seconds and a minute, minute and a half, 15, 52, 29. Yeah, some of them are really short, but yeah, it's just, as a completist, you gotta have everything. This is a Record Store Day exclusive, I believe limited to 2,000 copies at 45 RPM. It's a really good sounding record, so if you're familiar with the podcast or are interested in podcasts, check it out and listen for his tunes. Alright, next up we're going to talk about City of Quartz, the second solo album by Nick Diamonds. Came out in 2015. A lot of reviews said it's low-light music, video game music, things like that. It's very animated, very computerized drum beats, drum synthesized music, computer-made instruments, things like that. I haven't spent a lot of time on this album yet because there's just been so much other stuff going on since this one came out. I've listened to it a couple of times. I want to keep digesting it before I give any kind of final review on it. There's a handful of really good tracks that I instantly liked, and there's a few that I'm going to have to keep going back and listening to and trying to figure out the lyrics and decide for myself exactly what I think of this one, because it's still so new to me. I've only gotten to listen to it just a few times now. But yeah, this is the 2015 solo release by Nick called City of Quartz. Earlier in the year, back in January, saw a Facebook post from Islands that they are releasing 2 new studio albums on the same day in the spring. Well, today was that day, and they both arrived in the mail today thanks to PledgeMusic.com. They released the pre-order on PledgeMusic.com with tons of different packages that you could choose from. There's still several available, so go check them out on Pledge Music if you're interested in the records. They had a 2-pack. You can get both of them autographed for $50. That's what I picked, and that's a heck of a deal because that is shipped to my door. 2 albums, brand new music. The first album we're going to talk about is Taste. This one is more similar to that of his solo material, where it's mostly computerized, and I listened to this today. I've only had a chance to listen to it once, haven't sat down and really got to feel it or listen to it with the lyrics in hand yet, but it's really good. It's really poppy, really catchy. It's a little bit of everything, you know. It's pop music for people that don't like pop music, and I think that's why I really like this style of the synth pop, because I don't really get much of that stuff, but I get this. And the second release that came out today was Should I Remain Here at Sea, which is being titled similar to that of Return to the Sea, their very first album. So this is playfully being considered kind of a follow-up or an homage to their first album. And it is a completely different album to that of Taste. This is full band stuff, similar to that you would get on Ski Mask, where it's mostly that indie pop fuzz, like really good indie pop rock sound. There's some really awesome songs on this. One time I got to listen to this so far today, yeah, I was pretty satisfied with the first spin. Looking forward to sitting down with the lyrics to this one so I can really digest the album. But yeah, there wasn't a bad track on this on a first listen. Usually, sometimes you can get skeptical on first listen where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna have to go back to it. No, I was satisfied all the way through with this one and with Taste, which is just insane that we got 2 brand new studio albums on the same day, written at the same time period, but completely different ends of the spectrum. It's just insane. So when I pre-ordered those albums, I actually gathered up all of my Nick-related vinyl, and I took a picture and I sent it to him on Facebook, and I congratulated him on the new albums and was just letting him know that I got mine pre-ordered and how pumped I was for it. And he actually responded back with this caption here. And he goes on to say later in the next message that you can't see in that screen cap that I was awesome, and that I actually have more vinyl than he does of his own stuff. So it was pretty neat to hear back from somebody that you admire so much. So that's really cool. And you got to really think about it. This band, he pretty much started in 2003. It's 2016, so in 13 years, he's released 13 different albums, either with bands, solo albums, side projects with different musicians, other EPs and singles as well, but we're talking 13 years, 13 studio albums, and they're all ends of the spectrum. You can't get bored with this band. You can't get bored with Nick's music, and his brain in general. It's like he goes in different directions. Every album is different. Everything has a different sound, different layers, different textures. It is just insane how somebody can go from one thing to the next so quickly with no transition and no period. Whereas, you know, even Dylan had periods in the 80s, and Cash had periods in the 80s in different time periods where they were trying to refine themselves along their path. So far, in 13 years, I know that isn't the 60s through the 2000s like those legends, but in the scheme of things, 13 solid albums, slowly on the rise for 13 solid years, just gets better and better. We're different, not even better, just different every time. So that's pretty sweet. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this video. I decided to make a Spotify playlist of my favorite songs by Nick and all of his bands and all his different incarnations. The link is down below so you could see my favorite songs from his journey from where he started with Unicorns until today's brand new releases. Congratulations to Nick and the band for 2 amazing brand new albums. And I cannot wait to see you guys in 2 weeks at Scully's Diner for my very first live concert Islands experience in Columbus, Ohio. If anybody's going to be up that way, grab your tickets, come find me. We will have a beer at the bar. I look forward to chatting with all of you guys that are up in that area. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy Islands, enjoy Nick's music, and enjoy the music.